Okay, good evening, everybody. Let's get started. And we'll call to order. And the first thing is actually an announcement I'm going to make, which is the film that's going to be showing tomorrow night. You're all cordially invited to a free showing of the film about Jane Jacobs, the great urban activist and scholar, author of Death and Life of Great American Cities, called Citizen Jane, Battle for the City. And it's at the Northwest Neighborhood Cultural Center, 7 o'clock tomorrow. It's free, so please do come, and we hope to see you there. Anybody else have any other announcements? Anybody from the audience like to make an announcement?
I would just add about the film that one of the panelists after the film is our very own president. So another reason to come.
Yeah.
You should do introductions.
Steve Salomon. I tried to register online and it was so complicated. I just put in comments.
You can just come. You don't need to register. Okay, great. Yeah, we need to do introductions. I failed to do that. There's Jerry. There's Scott. Okay, why don't we start with, speaking of Jerry, Jerry, would you start with the introductions?
I'm Jerry Powell. Mark Belkey.
Roger Leachman.
And Michael Mahaffey.
Cal Todd.
Sherry Salomon.
Eric Salomon.
And if I can ask the members of the audience to say hello.
And Mary.
Steve Salomon.
Christine McGrew.
Mike Echeverria. Don Whipple.
Laura.
Dwight Terry.
Ray French. Ruth Thatcher. Robert Donovan. Barbara Lixichet.
Michael Mixichet.
Alpha Wilson. Sandy Blank. Lou Coopsey.
And Scott Schaefer. We missed it, right? Okay. Did we get everybody? I think we did. So let's, once again, I want to invite anybody who has any other announcements or comments to do so. Seeing none.
We still have, if you haven't signed the TriMet, opposing the TriMet closure, the petition is still out there. So if you want to sign it, please come up and sign it, or I'll pass it to you.
This is the closure of the Salmon and Kings Hill station.
So Michael, I just got an update from TriMet.
Yeah, please, Mary, come forward and give us.
So we just had a presentation from TriMet to the Stadium District Business Association, and they said their public comment period is going to last until the end of March. They've gotten thousands of comments.
Great.
I don't know that that swayed them one way or the other. They think that you could walk a block and a half to other stations here, but they're at least keeping the public comment period open. So, just wanted to give you that update.
And our letter has gone out
I
as
saw
well,
that.
as you may have seen.
I'd like to say something about the walking.
Yes.
I have my brother, who's 10 years older, staying with me. He's been staying with me for almost 2 weeks. And he can barely make it to one stop, and with the way he shuffles his feet. To make it an extra block is enormous if you're not an able-bodied person. And it is such an insult for TriMet to say, oh, you can just walk an extra block or two. Fine if you're 25 years old and you work out at the gym 3 days a week. I mean, it's just crazy. It makes me, it infuriates me.
That's a really good comment. So the next TriMet board meeting meets the fourth Wednesday of the month at 9 a.m. It's down at the World Trade Center. And at 9 o'clock, they open the comment period up. That would be, Sherry, that would be a great comment to go to the board. I can send you info so you have it. And that's the kind of message that we need to send over the next several months to help keep the station open. So I'm going to send you info, but we would love if anyone would want to stand up and make a comment at the board meeting, because now we're appealing directly to the board.
So, could you give the date again?
Yeah, it's Wednesday the 24th at 9 a.m. and I'll send info. 9 a.m. at the World Trade Center. So we'll send it out. But those are the kind of comments that sort of get through the noise of, well, you can just walk a block and a half, or Lincoln High School students, well, they're just fine to walk a block and a half, even if it's at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. So that's the kind of message that really helps.
So, could you give the date again?
So Wednesday the 24th at 9 a.m. and I'll send info. 9 a.m. at the World Trade Center. So we'll send it out. But those are the kind of comments that sort of get through the noise of, well, you can just walk a block and a half, or Lincoln High School students, well, they're just fine to walk a block and a half, even if it's at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. So that's the kind of message that really helps.
In your opinion, what is driving this change?
They're trying to save money, and they're trying to appeal to suburban riders who have to travel through downtown, even though it's only a 2-minute change. So if they close if they close the 3 stations they're proposing, it would save 2 minutes of travel time. 2 minutes.
So what do they say about all the tourists? For example, the Salmon Street closure, which is a very popular tourist destination.
I just might have given the last one.
They think you can walk, and that's their sense. So we need to present another perspective. So
I will be glad to testify.
thank you so much, Sherry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else have any other comments they'd like to provide?
Yeah, I would just like to say, if we have any people who are here for the first time and are not members of the Goose Hollow Foothills League, we have membership forms here on the front for you to fill out. We're having our election next month, so this would be a perfect time to sign up. No cost, although I work for tips.
I was going to make sure that you said no cost.
Yeah, and we've been reaching out. We had a great response. Melanie did such a great job. All of you did a great job with the Goose Hollow Days and getting, how many, 26 or number of
Well, there's 22 new members.
new members, which is great. So we're eager to get more members and more diversity on the board. Okay, moving on to old business and board emails. Anyone have emails to report that they exchanged with ex parte conversations or exchanges? Hearing none. Let's go on to Roger's item, which is the, sorry?
Is it clear to everybody what day the annual election is? Can you hear?
Yeah. The annual election is the 3rd Thursday in November, which will be, let me just double check it here, November the 15th. And you need to be a member in order to vote. You need to be a member by when?
How many hours, Roger? Are these 2 days in advance, or?
What's that?
To be a member in order to vote in the election.
That would be, you must be registered by noon the day before. That would be the Wednesday. That's to
Wednesday
give
at
time
12
to
o'clock.
Neighbors West Northwest to process it. It used to be 5 days, and we made it as permissive as we could. So noon of Wednesday, the day before the election, that's the last day for memberships.
Okay, moving to Roger's item on e-scooters, and you've got a draft letter, Roger?
Yep.
Yes, and there are copies at the end here for anyone who wants to look at them. The background to this is we had talked about it at the last meeting, and I had forwarded it. I had forwarded the letter that went from the Pearl District Neighborhood Association on the e-scooter matter to us, and we, after a little bit of discussion, everybody said, well, draft something and bring it back to us, and that is what I have done. And so I don't regard my draft as the be-all and the end-all, but I will put it forward on the floor. Everybody can look at it, and I will, entertain friendly amendments, and those of you who want to make an unfriendly amendment, you can so move. So I move the adoption and the sending of a letter regarding e-scooters to city commissioners and the PBOT, I believe, interim director, Mr. Treat.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mark? Mark. Oh, Jerry said. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I think the letter, thank you, Roger, for writing this letter, but I feel like this letter is a little harsh in addressing one point of view.
I can't hear you, Melanie. Can you speak?
I said that I feel like this letter is a little harsh in one point of view. Is it too late to suggest edits? Like,
I think you could certainly make friendly amendments if you want to,
Yeah.
or, you know.
But can we do it like?
Absolutely.
offline At a later? I'm only seeing the letter today. So can I make some edits later?
Later, that would mean we couldn't act on it tonight. That's the only thing. I don't,
Unless we
Yeah,
said,
that's
what's,
why we're
I
voting
think,
not to
I
send
think
it, and I
the,
don't think we
I
should send
think the problem here may be that, if I remember correctly, it's early in November that the comment period closes, and we aren't going to act on this in November because we have an annual meeting. You know, the next time we get to act on this would be the December meeting. I'm just throwing that out there. If you don't want to send a letter, of course, that's also the board's, that's in the board's purview.
so the board could also simply say, we're going to approve the letter in spirit, but ask for, I mean, if we want to say this as a board, ask for, you know, polishing of the language or whatever, however we want to characterize that, and just give a advanced approval for you.
You know, I wouldn't vote for that. I want to, I'm a big one, and I think Mark here is too, of when the board's going to approve a letter taking a board position, we see what we're approving.
So may I ask, is a board's position, because I'm not really, it was just brought up at the last meeting and then I'm seeing this letter, but is the position on e-scooters basically you don't want them? They're in a pilot program, or you just want some more care given by riders in where they're parked and where they're riding them?
I will give my answer. I'll be glad to hear from people out there and other people on the board. My concern is not with having e-scooters, it's the way
The riders are,
the way we are, as I say in the letter, we're abrading the public commons. The sidewalk is a public commons. They are motorized vehicles, that's one point, and so why do motorized vehicles get to park free on the sidewalk, which is in the way of, as my text in the letter says, children, the elderly, and persons with disabilities. We don't allow motorcycles to be parked on the sidewalk. Biketown, which I mention in here as, I think, a success, has docking stations. Now, if the problem that the people who push the e-scooters have, of course, is that if they had depots like rental car companies, or if they had docking stations, that would probably diminish their use somewhat and diminish definitely their profits. But what I'm looking at there is the balance between private profit and having e-scooters all over the sidewalk, because some people park them on this end of the sidewalk, some people park them on the other, some people park them in the middle, some people park them straight ahead, some people park them at an angle. And I just, you know, get back myself, I come back to the point of vehicles, motorized vehicles, one, should not use the sidewalk, and they should not be parked on the sidewalk. I'm perfectly okay with people riding e-scooters and going down the streets, going down the bike lanes, etc. And I don't care whether they wear a helmet or not, because the city doesn't even, you know, worry about bicyclists and whether or not they wear helmets. If people want to become a paraplegic, hey, that's okay.
I just wanted to say, I think there are really several issues. One is docking, where they're going to put them. Also, since it is a pilot program, the rules were, and then they added little stickers on all the scooters so people would be aware of it, that they're only supposed to ride in the street, although that has not been quite the case. And they're also supposed to be wearing helmets, which they're not. So I think it's really a number of different issues that come to the forefront on all of this. And my understanding is I believe there are either 2,000 or 2,200 scooters that have been approved by the city, at least initially in the 6-month program. And after that, they'll evaluate it and see, what they'll be doing.
Cal?
So my point is, actually, I would like to see, because tonight it seems like we have a larger age diversity in the audience. Can we just maybe take a quick survey of e-scooters by maybe raising your hands from the audience, like pro, con,
Sure.
or just needs improvement kind of thing? So, because, I get how you guys feel about it, but it's like, if we're sending this letter, it should represent the neighborhood and not just certain members of the.
Right, just before we do that though, I want to note, I don't hear Roger saying, I don't like e-scooters. I hear him saying we need to be a little more thoughtful in the regulatory structure of how this is handled.
Right, but that's
It's sort
not
of-
how this letter comes across to me. It seems very harsh that we're just harshly against it, which I don't agree with. It needs improvement.
I was here last month. I don't remember seeing this, and I'm just seeing it. And I walk all the time in Goose Hollow with my 7-pound dog on a lead, and you have no idea how many times I've almost fallen because people come up behind me and don't alert me. And it's not just e-scooters, it's bicycles. And I mean, really, it's been scary to me because I've almost fallen. I'm not a young person anymore. If I go down, that's the end of that. But on the other hand, I don't find this letter harsh or disrespectful. And I think the e-scooters are fine, just like I think the bicycles are fine. But they should follow the rules. I don't drive my car on the sidewalk, and I don't ride my bike on the sidewalk. And I just want them to be cognizant of the fact that I feel vulnerable on the sidewalk with my dog because people are not respectful. And my other question is, I'm not quite sure what we're voting on. Are we voting on to send this letter? Are we
Yeah.
voting, okay.
Yeah, that's the thing.
All right, okay.
But we want everybody's input.
Well, I'm not against them. I think the letter's fine. I might, if I was 20 or 30 years younger, be willing to get on an e-scooter just to see what it's like. I ride a bicycle, I don't have any problems. So my opinion is that if there was some way for the city to actually enforce like they should be doing, fine. Everybody deserves to have an opportunity, but I don't want them causing me an accident, and I would have no recourse. The bicycle guy just keeps driving down the street and basically flips me off when I point out that he's not supposed, or she isn't supposed to be on the sidewalk. So that's my opinion.
Do you want to just come up and speak
Oh,
to
sure.
the mic? Thank you.
I think they're great, but I also, I've rented one, and I didn't know you couldn't get on the sidewalk. I don't think they explain that very well to people who are on them, let alone helmets or anything like that. So I think it was more clear. The only reason I did not be on the sidewalk was because someone said, hey, get off the sidewalk. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be on the sidewalk.
It was probably me.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
Actually,
That was clear, you know what I mean? And I also think they're parked in good areas, and it's hard for people with disabilities. I've seen people in wheelchairs have problems being around, but I don't really know what you could do about that. But I think
We
if
have
they
to
were,
educate.
yeah,
Make
it's more
people
about
more
just making, yeah.
responsible.
Well, either that or it's really the responsibility of the city when this trial period is over to come up with alleged rules, which they now have, which they're not enforcing.
Well, I've never seen those stickers you're talking about, and I see those things.
Well, at one time, they're just put on with a rubber band, so I
They're
assume
not
they're
there.
When
going
you
to
pull up
take
the
them
app,
off.
when you pull up the app, sometimes a message comes on when you initiate, you have to write them. So the writers do see that message coming up onto their phones. You can only write it if you have a smartphone.
okay, let's try to respect the people who have their tents up and so on. I want to just quickly respond though on the bicycles, because I know a little bit about the law there, being a bicyclist myself. It is legal to ride on the sidewalk in areas outside of the core, and that's defined in the law. But you have to go slowly and you have to signal when you're coming up on somebody. And I think the same thing is true with the e-scooters. I'm not 100%
I just want to let you know.
Actually, it isn't.
So let's go to Jerry and then Cal and then Mark.
Stan Pinkin's letter it speaks truth. I have some issues with it. One is that it makes assertions without backing them up, which it should do. The other things are that as Eric pointed out, there are several issues. One of them is who has the liability. That's not clear in anything that I've seen. I've seen the pilot proposal that was floated several months ago. I didn't see whatever it was that the council actually did with that pilot proposal. Our effort to safeguard the commons and the sidewalks that's something very close to my heart, but it shouldn't be the public's responsibility to enforce the common sense on the folks that are riding those vehicles, and they are vehicles; they're motor vehicles. It should be the responsibility of the lessors of those things to enforce it. I haven't seen any willingness on the part of the city to actually put the three companies that are involved in that position. And that is I think that's a serious omission in that letter.
Okay, Cal, so I don't know if that's addressed in the letter. Roger, is that addressed, what Jerry just brought up? I don't see it.
The only part, it's addressed in somewhat a way where in the, next to the last paragraph, beginning of the second sentence, in the present situation, the public commons has been made a dumping ground for the purpose of maximizing private profits. Also, fines and impounds incentivize compliance. Illegally parked cars are fined or towed. This could be part of the toolkit for dealing with e-scooters and keeping the public commons open, usable, and safe. And we might rewrite that to be more in line with the way Jerry expressed it, but I think that's getting to the point here that who is liable here, and it seems to be a very gray area, and that's a problem, especially since, as we, everybody pretty much is saying that there's no enforcement, and there never has been even before e-scooters. Like Sandy has said, I'm a cyclist too, as Jerry is, as Michael is, but we know what the laws are and how we should behave with our bicycles. And the city, as it is, has not enforced laws against bicyclists using the sidewalks in the central city area, or skateboarders. I don't know how many times walking down to Freddy's I've had near misses on some skateboarder coming by me at 20 miles an hour, and now we're adding e-scooters to that mix, and I just had on my way walking here a close encounter of that kind with an e-scooter. I've tried to keep the anecdotal out of this because there are a lot of places and letters where people talk about their experience with them. And I've had, as a cyclist and as a pedestrian, many of them. I can tell you the time when I told, I'm in the bike lane and there's these two young men going by on the e-scooters, and I say, you're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be on the on the bike lane here. And they say, shut up, I don't care. And the other would say, it's too dangerous. Well, that's... Well, hey.
Well, look, I didn't finish the comments, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
I'll try to be real brief. So my suggestion is that we add something about liability issues here then, or make it more clear as a friendly amendment. The second thing is that in the second last paragraph where it says a dumping ground for the purpose of maximizing private profits, I feel that's strong, and why don't we just say a dumping ground for e-scooters? Because they're dumped all over the place. That's my suggestion. Just to soften the letter a little bit there, I don't know why we have to get into profit motive. And at the end where it says, thus far seems to be as an assault on neighborhood livability, I would say just undermines neighborhood livability.
Are you suggesting, let's go with that while you put it
Thus
there.
far undermines neighborhood livability instead of an assault.
The city's approach to e-scooters thus far appears to undermine
neighborhood livability.
I will accept that friendly amendment.
And then changing,
Dumping ground for
Dumping
e-scooters rather than dumping ground for the purpose of maximizing profit.
Well, let's think about that one a minute. I mean, I don't mean about the profit motive. I just don't like that sentence. A dumping ground for e-scooters. That's like they're trash. I don't want to get into that either. So let's hold that in abeyance and come back to it, and let's hear what Liz has to say.
yeah. go ahead.
Is there a way you could work in, is it Sandy?
Yeah.
When she said, I feel vulnerable, if you could work that into it, you know, not just neighborhood livability, but the vulnerability, that use was quite good of the residents or the walkers or the people here.
That's a good, yeah, we're thinking we could work that into this undermines neighborhood livability and
makes its citizens vulnerable, or make it better to do it like she did.
Wait, what are you saying that, these scooters are riding on sidewalks?
Anything like that, but we're addressing scooters right now.
No, I'm saying, are you saying scooters
The scooters
undermine
are making us
livability,
feel-
or the scooters being ridden on sidewalks? Undermine livability. I don't,
The current usage of the scooters is making us feel vulnerable as walkers.
right, but in what way?
Yeah, in what way? Well, we get run into. I mean, we have to run out of their way.
So you're talking about when they're on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm
On the
not saying that
sidewalk.
you guys haven't had these experiences, people have, but, I walk all over the city too, and I have not once almost been killed by any scooter or bike.
Man, you are lucky then, because I walk
Yes.
everywhere and they're always running into me.
It's a real.
They're always running into you?
I have been hit many times by bicycles and injured pretty badly. So
Okay, so this is about e-scooters. I
the
understand.
bicycles, and I think the bicycles and the e-scooters, if they're anywhere near the sidewalk, are pretty much the same problem.
What's really funny is that today, as a matter of fact, I walked from downtown, there was actually a police or security officer in his uniform on the sidewalk, riding on the sidewalk in the wrong direction. So, that just tells you right there that we have an issue that they're not ready.
Well,
The ad-
again, I think I want to get back to e-scooters on the sidewalk and not get to bicyclists and not get to e-scooters in other locations, because I think we've got to be specific here. The other point is, as I said before, bicyclists are legal on the sidewalks outside of the immediate central core of Portland, downtown area, and but they do have requirements for how they behave and how they signal and so on. So I don't think we need to get in, I don't think we should get into that in this letter.
Michael, one of the things that
Go ahead.
one of the things that you're an expert on livability. One of the things that concerns me about articles that I've read in art, that older people in general just are plain vulnerable for so many things. And I see a correlation between the lady who walks her dog and wanting to close the TriMet, oblivious to the fact that people that are senior citizens that walking an extra block could make the difference between whether they get out of their apartment and go where they need to go, or whether they stay at home or they end up having to pay for cab service. It's just what I'm seeing just overall is it's really a lack of sensitivity towards our seniors.
May I suggest an approach, since we've had a good discussion on this with a lot of concerns raised? I'll come back to you, Steve. The letter's not that long. Let me read each paragraph, and then people react to it and say, well, you should change this, or take out that, and so on. Do you think we could get through it that way?
Yeah, we do need to focus on the letter and not get, I don't want to be too limiting in the discussion, but I just want to make sure we get our job done here. So.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the letter is just fine, and one of the things that we have found, unfortunately, is that when we have written very timid letters in the past regarding a whole variety of things, we tend to get ignored. So maybe writing something strong, maybe we'll get somebody's attention.
I'm not really trying, maybe my letter does sound harsh or strong. I was just trying to raise and limit it to the issues that Jerry has talked about. I don't want it to be a matter of, hey, we're throwing out our gripes. Well, my intent is to make the city aware that the current approach does not seem to be working, and it's because of, not treating the sidewalks as a public commons and not enforcing, and they have a history of not enforcing violations on the sidewalk. And, then letting them and PBOT take that information from us to come up with what they finally do to regulate this. This is like, in a way, Eric was talking to me about this, the approach to Airbnb that the city had, and maybe he can speak to that as we go through it. But if we're set, let me go through paragraph by paragraph.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do
Steve,
that.
did you have something else to add?
Yeah, Steve Salomon. Is there any other city that we could learn? Comes to mind, at least not with the e-scooters, but in Amsterdam, I've been there twice, and they have very tightly regulated bike lanes, pedestrian lanes, and automobiles, and they all have huge volumes, and they don't seem to have much of a problem. I don't know whether they have e-scooters now or not, but is there something?
I laughed because, this country's all over the place. Columbus, Ohio, for instance, I think lets them ride on that's the only place they could be on, is the sidewalks. And in San Francisco, they're throwing them into the bay. So I don't, it's kind of not our responsibility to research that and say, this is what everybody else does. That's PBOT's. In my view.
And I think that it's fair to say that this issue is being faced by many cities right now, because this is one of these innovative technologies that has come along, and it has some good aspects. Multimodal transportation, we're all for that, as the last paragraph says, but it's obviously introducing some problems too, and I think that's the spirit of the letter. Okay, Roger, why don't you go
first
through?
paragraph. The Board of Goose Hollow Foothills League wishes to add their voice to the concerns expressed by many others, including our respected colleagues at the Pearl District Neighborhood Association, about the, quote, serious safety hazard to pedestrians walking on sidewalks posed by the introduction of electric scooters. End of first paragraph. Okay? Second paragraph. As many pedestrians have discovered, e-scooters are routinely being driven on sidewalks in complete disregard of laws protecting those rights of way. The rights of all pedestrians, including children, the elderly, and persons with disabilities, are thereby disregarded, and, more crucially, they are endangered by this permissiveness. End of second paragraph.
So can we just add a suggestion instead of just, to add to the criticism? Why don't we add, education, rider education is needed.
As a concluding paragraph, sentence to the paragraph.
Right.
Okay.
That would be a helpful suggestion.
Okay. Rider education is needed, period.
Yeah, well, is necessary, needed, whatever,
Yeah, I'm good with that as a friendly amendment, and we will put that in, and I'll write it in, and then I'll read the next paragraph. Do you mind if I add the adverb greatly? Rider education is greatly needed?
That's great. Yeah.
Okay. Third paragraph, we are skeptical both of the city's resolve and ability to enforce laws prohibiting the use of motorized vehicles on sidewalks, given what has been observed since the advent of e-scooters, and given that the city has not enforced existing prohibitions regarding skateboards and bicycles on sidewalks. That the police department is understaffed, we realize, but we cannot think that is the sole reason these matters are not dealt with.
I would recommend making the first part of that into 2 sentences.
I'm sorry, could you come up?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I wish we had
I'm actually just gonna grab
microphones all the way through the
That's okay.
Through the audience.
So I would recommend making the first part of that into 2 sentences instead of the long, really long first sentence.
We are skeptical of the city's, so I would eliminate both. We are skeptical of the city's resolve and ability to enforce laws prohibiting the use of motorized vehicles on sidewalks. Period.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then possibly after the next sentence, stating what you might think the reason is that it's not being dealt with.
So eliminate what, given what has been observed since the advent of e-scooters. Just eliminate that part?
Not eliminate it, but maybe
We could
add
say,
a sentence that states what you think
We
the
have
additional
observed
reason
since
might
the
be.
advent of e-scooters that the city has not enforced existing prohibition. Blah, blah, blah.
Why can't we just ask for enforcement laws?
Yeah.
Instead of going around and just
That's a good
being
option,
critical
too.
and guessing, why don't we just say what we
Getting
want?
more straight to it, yeah, that's a good
So-
point too.
Run that all by me again?
So maybe instead of saying that you realize that and that's not the sole issue that they're understaffed, maybe just stating what the resolution could be and instead of kind of going that other way around.
I mean, we are skeptical of both the city's reasons. I mean, that doesn't, what we want, Roger, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, what this board is trying to say is we, after this pilot program is over, if it's going to be a permanent, a thing in the city, then, what do we want? What would you like for the city to do? Say that instead of just a statement that's kind of like criticizing the city's result.
It's like, we think that riders should be fined $100 for riding on sidewalks.
So-
Yeah, just maybe
More time
a couple
needs to be allocated by the
dollar fines
enforcement.
or, laws enforcing dollar fines, and who should enforce them? The city should enforce them with the city,
So just so you know, the city's website here says, as a condition of receiving a permit, companies must provide rider education, making it clear that sidewalk riding is prohibited. PBOT will monitor sidewalk riding during the pilot and may require scooter companies to engage in more robust rider education. So we could say something like, it's not working, you need to.
More robust
Do more.
education
Yeah,
or
more
different
robust
methods. But
education
I know
is
right
needed.
now that the only education that is really put forth is right in the beginning when you sign up for the app. It gives you a few screens that say, these are the rules
Yeah.
before you're allowed to click go, unlock one. So maybe something more than that, whatever that would be, I'm not really sure. That would probably be up to them or the city to determine, but.
I'm open to all this, I just want to know how to express it, because here's what we have so far. We are skeptical both of the city's resolve and ability. We are skeptical of the city's resolve, I'll eliminate both, the city's resolve and ability to enforce laws prohibiting the use of motorized vehicles on sidewalk, period. Now, where are we going from there? Do we eliminate the police department as understaffed? That last sentence?
I don't think we need to go into that.
Yeah,
I
We don't need to spend.
Can you say we strongly urge the city to resolve to,
Yes.
we strongly urge the city
I like that, yeah.
We
to
strong,
resolve to enforce the laws prohibiting the use of?
city.
We strongly urge the city to enforce the laws prohibiting the use of motorized vehicles on sidewalks, and then drop the given what has been observed, et cetera. Or you can say, we understand that there may be some problems with this given what has been observed since the advent, et cetera, but we urge you to do thus and so.
While that's a great improvement, it still assumes that it's the city's responsibility to monitor the behavior of the folks that are leasing these scooters. It should be the company's responsibility to ensure that the public is safeguarded.
So the city needs to require scooter companies to better educate their riders because the
Yeah,
sign up guide is not enough.
And there need to be some teeth that make sure that it happens that way.
Well, isn't it both though? Because for example, the police should, if they're not actually ticketing, they should at least be educating. And I wanted to mention also that this pilot program ends November 21st. If the city determines that shared scooters do not have a long-term role, the companies will no longer be able to operate in the city. If the city determines that shared scooters do have a long-term role, companies will be required to reapply for an annual permit. So there's an evaluation period after the 21st. So we might speak to that.
Yeah, I'm thinking, as I hear Jerry and you and Liz, that maybe we want to change the last sentence of that paragraph to talk about the responsibilities of the city and the lessors of, wait a minute,
The scooter companies.
The companies, yeah.
Yeah.
The scooter companies.
for this.
Can you say something like, we encourage the city to institute stronger regulations to make these lessors behave themselves?
We strongly encourage the city to
Institute.
mandate the lessors.
That's good.
Yeah,
You're going in the right direction here.
we strongly encourage the city. Senior moment, what did I say after that?
To
Mandate.
To
Mandate.
mandate.
To mandate the lessors to
Adhere to the rules, adhere to the regulations, something like that.
Jerry?
Yeah, to adhere to
I'm
the
thinking
regulations set forth in the pilot program.
to find ways to enforce their own rules is where I want to go with it. What's spinning around in my head right now is that the technology that is available to these guys to activate the scooters can't be not reversible.
Can't be what?
Can't be irreversible.
There has to be a way to turn the thing off if it's being misused.
Like in the moment.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So, we don't have to actually come up with all the minute details
Yeah.
of how they're going to do it.
Right,
Let's just
right.
give a general, our opinion of what needs to happen, and they can come up with the solution.
The idea is to put it in their pocket.
Yeah.
So we're back to, we mandate, we strongly encourage the city to mandate the lessors to
Enforce the rules set forth in their pilot program.
to be responsible to have the lessors be responsible. How about that?
Yeah.
To
To have the e-scooter companies be responsible.
have the lessors be responsible
Take responsibility
for
for the lessors to take
Responsibility.
responsibility
for enforcement.
enforcing the rules as they were set forth in the pilot program.
In the
right?
pilot program, I think that.
Are just enforcing the rules, because the pilot program might end,
Okay.
and it would be, we still want rules, right?
Is it- yeah.
Okay, we strongly encourage the city to mandate the lessors to take responsibility for enforcing the rules.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, next paragraph. Next, we come to the matter of the e-scooters being motorized vehicles. The city does not allow motorcycles to be parked on the sidewalks. Why does that prohibition not apply to e-scooters?
It
Question
does,
mark.
yeah, actually. Oh,
I
I
think
know
we should
about
strike that
parking.
whole paragraph.
Well, wait a minute, though. I think that's this paragraph to me is about the most crucial one, because they are letting them be parked on the sidewalk. They
Well,
mandate
there's
they
bikes
mandate
being
they do it
parked on
in
the
a certain
sidewalk,
way,
too.
and they don't enforce that. And my point is that they should not even allow that to happen.
Why?
Because the
Not
sidewalk is a public commons. You can't put your motorcycle on the sidewalk.
There are bike stations on sidewalks
But
currently.
they're not.
They're designated. They're like the bike town, the docking
Suggest
stations.
that they're
This is anywhere on the sidewalk. That's the point. Anywhere on any
Right, so
sidewalk.
they need to enforce the rules and regulations, not ban them altogether from the sidewalks. It doesn't make sense, they're not motorcycles. They're not, they don't even go that fast. But they're tiny little things, they're not, they're not gonna block an entire sidewalk if they're
Yes,
parked
they do.
correctly.
They do,
Yes,
they do,
All the
certainly do.
time.
So they do if they're not parked correctly. I'm saying if the rider's responsibility, again, we go back to the education and people doing things correctly.
Right, so this paragraph has three issues. Either we don't want them on the sidewalk, we want them on the sidewalk, but we want them at the docking station, or they're okay on the sidewalk, and they don't have to be in a docking station, but they need to be arranged a certain way. You're saying three different things in that paragraph. So what do you really want to say?
I don't think we can ban them from being parked on the sidewalk. That doesn't.
Because that's the way they're all set up. Spaces too. And they're not gonna, the police won't enforce it. The companies themselves enforce that with riders, chargers, and mechanics, which are the three different types of people that work with them. And they individually will get charged, fined, whatever, if they don't arrange them the way they're supposed to be. I don't know how much that is. It might not be enough.
It's improving, but it's not perfect.
Right.
There are a lot of irresponsible riders, that's true, so they need education.
I
But
had
in that case, you're more likely to be successful taking photos of what you see and using social media, either through the city or through the companies, and saying, look, we don't want you in your neighborhood. This is just what I've seen in this past week. Your riders and your employees don't put them where they're supposed to be, and we're tired of it.
Yeah. Mary wanted to say something, I think, right? You had your hand up? Nope.
No.
Okay. No, well, I keep coming back myself to my personal feeling about it is that they have no place being parked on the sidewalk. Cars have to be in parking places. Motorcycles have to be in parking places. Bike town places have docking stations.
This
Jeff?
is totally the opposite of a car and a motorcycle. E-scooters are not to be compared with cars and motorcycles. You don't ride e-scooters on the freeway.
And do we really want them taking up parking spaces
Yeah.
that are full for actual cars
Exactly.
or full
Think of
motorcycles?
the nightmare
I don't
on
think
the
so,
street.
especially in Goose Hollow.
So where would you put them that they wouldn't block the sidewalk? Would you create docking stations, or would you?
Just to the very edge of the
So what would you
sidewalk.
do?
There are common sense places.
But that's not enough.
Okay, but
That's not what's
we're not,
happening.
that's not for us to decide here tonight.
Well, we're writing a letter saying there's a problem, and
Yeah,
you
so
maybe
just
don't
say
think
there's a
there is,
problem.
but
They need to be
I think the
worked
others
with.
So
think
in
there
this case,
is.
you could say that while the companies do have rules about how the scooters are parked, they're not being enforced.
Right. They're not, again, back to the
Those
enforcement and
rules on there
education.
exist.
I think they need more than education, they need fines. If they leave them haphazard.
Yeah, we could say that.
Well, right, but the riders, the companies aren't gonna care about a fine like that. They're gonna pay it, they're gonna move on.
Well,
So-
maybe that's
So
what
either
we,
they have to be required to do it or not.
yeah. So maybe that's something we could ask the city to look into.
But, I mean, is it really worth their time to go around and be like, oh, there's another scooter that's not parked correctly?
If you're in a wheelchair, it's-
The thing is, you've got
I'm
to
talking about
be clear
police
what's
windows.
correct, and it's a docking station. I mean, my bike, for example, I hook it up to a bike rack, and it goes where it belongs, right? It doesn't straddle the sidewalk and block people, and there's no analogous thing for scooters. Scooters can block the sidewalk, just like a bike can.
I think it makes sense to put them with the bike racks.
Yes.
They're meant for bikes. They're
I agree.
most compared to bikes, so why
Yeah,
not put
yeah,
them
we
with
could
bike
say
racks?
that, yeah.
But that falls on the rider's responsibility.
Maybe we could say something like scooters should have a place that the riders know they belong and they aren't going to straddle the sidewalk or whatever. Because you leave it ambiguous, we're right back to where we are now.
Right, right.
One of the tenets, though, of the scooter programs, though, is that they're able to move and migrate.
Yeah.
Like, they're not always put back in the same spot, and that's part of their appeal.
Right.
You know, and that they change where they're supposed to go based off the ridership. So you're completely changing their, their user model.
Yeah, that's the way the rental bikes work in Charlotte, and they're a problem because they're left everywhere. Yeah, I don't think that may be the premise, you see, but I object to that personally. I object to anything parked on the sidewalk because it's a right of way. You don't block the right of way, and the right of way is blocked wherever you put that. The docking station. I'm sorry, docking stations do it.
Roger, why don't we just say this for the...
Go ahead.
Mark.
Yeah, does anybody know what the rules are from the scooter company on where they're allowed to park these darn things?
Yes, they do have an outlet.
They're supposed to be blocking the middle of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Really, really clearly, but they show images even of it needing to be to the side or at a bike rack or somewhere that is very clearly not blocking
Pedestrian. Yeah.
Okay, well, here's what I know. I see these damn things parked all over the place. They're blocking the sidewalk. I saw one the other day, taking up a car spot, which of course that pisses me off because I'm one of the 5 car guys in the whole city. So I'm not going to vote for this letter unless it's got something about getting them off the damn sidewalks.
So if you want to get them off the sidewalk, then you just said they're taking up a parking spot. You don't want them on the street either.
Right.
So you don't want them. You don't like them.
They can park in they can put up a thing like those orange bikes, or they can park them in a bike stall.
Bike racks. We could put up more bike racks, perhaps.
Could we say something like, given that this is an experiment, we'd like to suggest the modification of this part of how these are going? Something like that?
I
And
think
then,
we really just need to make it clear that our issue is where they're stationed, not necessarily the ridership of them.
Right.
They're responsible. Yeah.
Just, and then it's the city or the company's decision.
That has to come
figure out
up
what
with
to do
it.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're at here. I'm not going to accept, if somebody can make a suggestion for amendment. Personally, I'm not going to retreat from the principle that a motorized vehicle, which is what they are, should not be parked on the sidewalk, which is public right-of-way. That's my...
But what if there's a
thrust of
rack
that.
for it on the sidewalk?
Yeah, that's fine.
Like a bike rack?
So how do we want to say that then? Because I think, are we going to say that we don't think they should be, e-scooters should be
We think they should
parked
have their
on the
own,
sidewalk?
their own rack.
Roger, since
Yeah.
this is you feel really strong. So why don't you just say in that paragraph, just change it to say, the e-scooter should not be parked on the sidewalk, and the city can take that statement as.
Say again, Melanie?
Just say you don't want the scooters parked on the sidewalk, because that's how you feel. So just put that in the letter. Instead of comparing them to motorcycles and cars, which they aren't, just say that you don't feel that they should be parked on the sidewalk, because that's what you want to say. And then we can vote on that.
Right, I will put, okay, so we're going to say,
Just to say that they should have docking stations, that's ridiculous for these scooters, it's not going to work.
we'll say e-scooters.
And to say that they're haphazard, all this other stuff is just super,
Yeah.
should not be parked on the sidewalk.
Parked on the sidewalk. But other options like docking stations,
need
bike
to be explored.
may be explored.
So why don't, okay, so why add stuff to the sidewalk that would, it's like, what would docking stations do, Why don't we just tell riders where they can park like they do now, there's
You
clear
have a lot
photo.
more faith in human nature.
Yeah, I agree with.
I know, but why would we want why would we want little docking stations all over this, that would just.
Well, why do we want angled scooters? This is what I see.
Because those are temporary, they won't always stay there.
They're like this, and they're like this, and there's, you know, a sidewalk.
Right, okay, so this whole conversation is about irresponsible riders and people not knowing, following the rules. So we're gonna tell the city that those need to be, you know, the changes that need to occur. Docking stations are not a good solution for e-scooters. It just adds more things to the sidewalk we don't need. Because those e-scooters move about, you know, that's the whole concept of e-scooters.
Mark?
You gotta be careful about what you say about these docking stations, because we're gonna get in a problem like they have over in Northwest. We're lucky because those orange bikes, at one point, one of them, set of them, was taking up parking spots on the street. Okay, then they moved it to the TriMet spot, which had plenty of room, which was a good thing. So we're lucky in Goose Hollow is all those orange bikes are not taking up parking spots. But unlike Northwest, I bet you they lost 20, 30, 40 parking spots on these damn orange bikes.
But maybe
Okay, so
people are
just be
riding
careful how you
bicycles.
word that docking station thing.
Okay.
Once again, this is coming from a car guy who cares about parking spots. So I know most of you just blow me off, so that's fine.
So you're against docking stations, right?
No, I didn't say that. Well, put them over on the TriMet train station spots. Put them where the orange ones already are, so they don't take
Okay,
up parking spots.
I've got a suggestion to wording, or maybe I'm gonna like this, but here's the way I suggest we redo that paragraph. Next, we come to the matter of the e-scooters being motorized vehicles. And I want to emphasize that because they are. I don't care if they have an electric motor, they are motorized vehicles. E-scooters should not be parked on the sidewalks, but other options that do not degrade the public commons should be explored.
Okay.
Period. How does that do it?
Sounds good.
Okay, that takes care of that paragraph. Okay.
Two more to go, hurry up.
Right, yeah, so
We're almost
that means we're going to eliminate a lot from
The second to last.
Second to last.
rental cars must be returned to depots. We will add a variation of this approach, and blah, blah, blah. We can eliminate that, okay?
Yeah, let's eliminate that whole paragraph.
Right, well,
I mean, you already said all this stuff earlier. It's already been addressed.
well, I think that Jerry wanted us to put in something about fines and impounds and liability. So, but certainly we eliminate the first the first two sentences definitely go. So do we want to say anything about fines and impounds?
What if you just leave it as it is and say, in the present situation, the public commons has been made a dumping ground of vehicles, something like that, or of scooters. Also fines and impounds, incentivized compliance, blah, blah, blah.
Well,
leave the rest of it.
Well, or maybe, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to eliminate, as Melanie suggests, the whole paragraph. And just go on to, we note that several on our board are avid, last paragraph now, we note that several on our board are avid cyclists, and virtually all walk and use public transportation to a great degree. We are not at all opposed to exploring alternative means of environmentally friendly transportation, but the city's approach to e-scooters thus far seems to undermine neighborhood livability, period.
Good.
What if you were to say, instead of the city's approach to e-scooters needs serious re-examination and alternative solutions or something like that? Because this is what they're going to be considering in this evaluation phase.
Okay, we had we'd already agreed on that last sentence, but you're suggesting something else, and give it to me again, and is everybody happy with it?
But the city's approach to e-scooters needs a serious reevaluation and new solutions.
Scott.
I'm sorry, I don't mean that.
No, hey, let's hammer it out the right thing.
I'm on the Portland website with e-scooters, and there's a lot of great information, so let me just read this to you, and maybe you can either incorporate it or knock out sentences that don't apply. Where can I ride the scooter? basically, where can I park the scooter? Use the kickstand and park scooters on the sidewalk in between the street curb and the walking path, which I assume means that if there's a curb and then there's a grassy area and that there's a sidewalk, that you park it in the grassy area or dirt. Leave space for people walking and people with disabilities to access transit stops, parked cars, bike racks, loading zones, and crosswalks, as well as other amenities. Don't ride. It's against the law to ride an electric scooter on sidewalks, in public parks, including Waterfront Park Trail, East Bank Esplanade, and Springwater Corridor, and on freeways, surprisingly enough. So what are you doing to educate the public on the rules? And there's a whole bunch of them. Here's one that's really interesting. To end the ride, users have to certify they parked correctly and or take a photo of the parking spot.
Really?
Yes, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, they just need to enforce.
Incentives and disincentives for user behavior. So there's a laundry list of things that they want these scooter companies to implement, and that's one of them. What about illegal sidewalk riding? As a condition of receiving a permit, they're talking about a permit for the scooter company. Companies must provide rider education, making it clear that sidewalk riding is prohibited. PBOT will monitor sidewalk riding during the pilot and may require scooter companies to engage in more robust rider education. Here's another one that's interesting. What will the city do with scooters not parked correctly? Companies are required to move scooters blocking the right-of-way. The time frame depends on the severity of the obstruction.
So see, we could just say, enforce your rules.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like that the city, just based on my observation, there's a ton of stuff in here that's not being followed. But the city does have the information. I think maybe what you should say instead is, we know that the city has this this desire to have robust engagement and enforcement, and we're not seeing it.
Yes.
And here are the things that we notice that are not being followed through on.
The positive tone like that is going to get a lot more traction, I feel like, than the totally negative tone.
So anyway, sorry for bringing that up.
Mark,
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, well, just to add to what Mel just said and listen to what Scott said, why don't we just skip the whole letter and just have one sentence? Please follow your rules.
Okay, well, since we're on the last paragraph, I would think it might be worthwhile
One
to
sentence,
just get...
follow your goddamn rules.
Kind of like Airbnb.
You were going to finish that sentence, Michael.
Yeah, well, what I said was, we're not at all opposed to exploring alternative means of environmentally friendly transportation, but the city's approach to e-scooters thus far seems inadequate and in need of further solutions, something like that. In other words, yeah, we get everything that Scott was just telling us, but it's not working as well as...
And in need of serious reevaluation. How about that?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Now that we've gotten this far, just so everybody knows, I read back. Hopefully we can be done with this. What we have. The Board of Goose Hollow Foothills League wishes to add their voice to the concerns expressed by many others, including our respected colleagues at the borough. Well, I won't read that. That paragraph states, as many pedestrians have discovered, e-scooters are routinely being driven on sidewalks in complete disregard of laws protecting those rights of ways. The rights of all pedestrians, including children, the elderly, and persons with disabilities are thereby disregarded, and more crucially, they are endangered by this permissiveness. Rider education is greatly needed, period. Third paragraph, we are skeptical of the city's resolve and ability to enforce laws prohibiting the use of motorized vehicles on sidewalks. Period. And the next sentence, we strongly encourage the city to mandate the lessors to I can't read my own writing. to take responsibility for enforcing the rules. Does that sound right? Okay.
Liz said something like, we strongly urge the city to enforce existing prohibitions. Something.
But I thought we changed it to this other.
I think we all got the gist of all the edits that we made, and we could probably take this offline, because I think we will be able to put together a letter that pretty much all of us took notes.
Well, I just want to be, I want to be certain that when we
He's
put
got a
this
draft.
forward,
Let's just- let's just
that
get that draft.
someone doesn't say to me afterwards, well, we didn't say that. Yeah. So we go to the next paragraph. Next, we come to the matter of the e-scooters being motorized vehicles. The city does not allow motorcycles to be parked on the sidewalks. E-scooters should not be parked on the sidewalk, but other options that do not degrade the public commons should be explored. End of that paragraph. And then we just eliminated the next paragraph on rental cars, etc. And I will cross through that so that I don't put that in. We note that several on our board are avid cyclists and virtually all walk and use public transportation to a great degree. We are not at all opposed to exploring alternative means of environmentally friendly transportation, but the city's approach to e-scooters thus far needs a serious evaluation. Lost what you said.
Serious evaluation and new solutions.
And new solutions. Period. That's it.
Thank you.
So we need to call the question.
So everyone has heard the letter. We had a motion and a second. Let's call the question. All in favor of sending the letter? Sure, yeah, you yes or no?
I'm going to abstain.
You seconded it. 1, 2,
Yeah,
that's all right.
I can 4, 5, 6 yes, 1 abstention.
I just want everyone to know, I want the unicycle franchise when it becomes available.
Yeah, go ahead and change mine to an extension too, Michael.
Okay, 5 yes and 2 abstentions.
5 yeses, 2 abstentions, Jerry, and Mark.
Okay, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to move more quickly through some of these other items. Jerry, you had a item about the Portland Clean Energy Initiative. They came, I guess, and spoke, is that right?
Not mine.
Sorry?
Wasn't
It's
Jerry?
not mine.
Who was that? Portland Clean Energy Initiative?
They came, we had a guy come talk to us about it, and somebody put a motion on the
Sherry
floor
put a motion on the floor, and then we tabled it
because
because nobody knew anything about it, and the guy was supposed to send us some information. I'm not sure if he ever did. If he did, I didn't see it.
nor did
Well,
I.
I'd be inclined to leave it tabled, frankly, because I think,
Move to table that item.
Yeah. I'll just make a quick comment. Before we do that, let me make a quick comment, which is that I think we need to focus on local Goose Hollow issues primarily, and not get involved in a lot of other political issues, even though I happen to personally support this one strongly, but that's not something I think really this board should be getting too deep into.
I agree.
Everybody,
Michael,
yeah.
could I just add that for people that want to know more information, that the Portland Audubon Society on their website has information for those people that want to learn more about the clean air, about the
Great.
energy proposal, Portland Clean Energy Initiative.
Great. All right, all in favor of retabling the motion? Everyone? Okay.
What number is that? That's 8? 8, right? There's 8 of us.
Oh, yeah. Okay, new business. This might be a little contentious as well. We'll see. Area parking fees. Roger.
Yes, and this is not a letter. It's a motion to establish a policy.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it says letter, but.
And I'll just
yeah,
put it,
so
I'll
it's
just
a
read it,
motion.
and there are copies over here. and then we can discuss it after it's seconded. Moved, it is GHFL policy that any changes in the PBOT area parking permit program, APP, for Area A that would increase the fees beyond simply covering the administrative costs of the program must be submitted for action, i.e. approval or disapproval, by the GHFL membership at a special membership meeting called for that purpose pursuant to GHFL bylaws 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and 2.5, and pursuant to ORS, that's Oregon Statutes, 65.204. The text of any proposed changes must be published in the Northwest Examiner, posted to the organization's website, and distributed to the membership email list at least 30 days prior to the meeting.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Eric seconds.
And I also have a friendly amendment to also include parking area B, Gander Ridge, which is part of our program as well.
Would that be the Gander
Well,
Ridge?
you're seconding the motion though, right?
Yes, but I then have a friendly amendment to add area B.
I will not accept the friendly amendment, Eric, simply because, and not that I'm opposed to it, simply because I would like to hear from, you know, like it'd be great if Luke were here and the people who used Area B, and I realize you are one of them, could have more say on it, whether they want that included. I think you're right, it probably should be, but I just wasn't ready to go that far.
We can do a second motion for that.
Yes, we can do that also.
Later.
But I want to just take care of Area A because that's most of.
So we've got
Dealer.
a second, and I'll just make a brief comment, which is that I agree with the spirit of this. I think it's a really regressive form of taxation, basically, to raise the parking rates. I realize that's a tool that people want to use for, parking demand management and so on, but that's something that really needs to be done with the consent of the governed, so to speak. So I agree with this.
Yeah, the background to this, for me, is that it was previously the case until I first came on the board and the city passed a amendment to the law, to the rules, that in fact it changed what was the case before, which was the area parking permit program had to base the fees just on the cost of administering the program. Then they became permissive, allowing neighborhood associations to raise the fees and then use the income thereby to address transportation needs in other ways, like for instance buying bus passes, or in the case of like the east side, actually running a bus line. The interesting thing is neighborhood associations don't really have any power. You know, we can just advocate for things like the height limits or zoning.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, you're shocked to hear such things, yes. But here we have power. And I do not see that an elected board of 11 people, and I'm not just talking about us, I'm talking about the board 3 years from now, or 6 years from now, or 10 years from now, has the right to basically tax the membership. I live in a building with 50 households. Those people are all renters. They represent everything. They're diverse. I live amongst gay couples, straight couples, families, African Americans, Hispanics,
low income.
and they're all low income and they rent. And when you raise the fees beyond what the administrative cost is, you are taxing those people who are the lowest income people we have in our neighborhood. If they're going to be taxed, because they call it a fee, but it is a tax, they have the right, I think, always to vote on it. And I mean vote directly on it, because the other matter behind this that has disturbed me and brought this to the fore is several things. We had, as Eric, I think, mentioned, the case of the NWDA, and I was at that meeting and I watched all of those people on that board vote for fees to go up to $300 a year. And everybody on that board who voted for that, guess what? Had a parking place, had their own garage, everything else. The other things that happen are things like the Downtown Neighborhood Association, where everybody who came to the meeting about the art museum right-of-way wanted to take a position against what the art museum wanted to do. That it was overwhelmingly, like 80% of the people there wanted that. Guess what happened? The board voted unanimously to support the art museum. Well, these things just should not be. So I come to this as a matter of the grassroots having their say on what matters most to them.
Okay, Cal and then Mark.
Okay, I reversed my flag here. I put it down. But I want to ask you a question. Do you have the soft copy for this motion?
What?
Do you have this, can you get me the soft copy?
Oh,
or
sure.
have you already emailed it to me?
Yes, I
Okay,
didn't delete
thank
it. Yeah, you have both hard or soft.
Mark.
Well, first, I'll just say, my view on parking is different than Roger's. And this is just my personal view. I'm not saying this is how I'm going to vote if it ever comes to a vote at the board, but, you know, I think what is it, $75 a year now, right?
Yep.
Yes.
That's what it
Yeah,
will
I
be.
think
It'll be in January.
$75 a year is like dirt cheap. So I personally don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'm willing to pay, I pay $125 a month to rent one spot for one of my cars, and I pay $150 a month to rent another spot for another one of my cars in a much cheaper town that's in storage. So I personally don't have a problem raising the parking fees. However, this motion is not about that. This motion is, all it's saying is that before we do that vote, we have a special meeting of the membership to discuss it first. And, you know,
For them to decide, not for to discuss it first. We would discuss it at the meeting, but the membership would vote and decide, not the board. That's the crucial thing. Sorry to interrupt. But
okay. Well, that brings up a different question then.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask that question. And going back to the Block 7 thing where we had the membership meeting, the membership voted, but then the board voted differently. So are we changing some rule here that's...
No, not in my view. What happened was the board did not decide, as you may remember. They had a split vote in May at their special called meeting. It was a very close call. We put together a petition based on the bylaws and ORS, the chapter of ORS I cited here, to call a meeting at which we voted 109-7, the membership, that the position on the rezoning was a neighborhood association, and we directed the board to so state it to city council. So the membership took action.
Okay, so we allowed, we were part of the, we weren't on the board yet, at least I wasn't. But
Nor was I.
We did it that way, and so this is basically saying we're going to do it the same way for this particular issue.
Well,
yes.
Let me
Okay,
just
so
interject.
let me finish here, because I got a couple more questions here. It's a minor thing, but I think it's APPP.
Okay.
And then my last question is, you're referencing all the bylaws, which of course I should know by now, but I don't have them memorized like you. For a regular special membership meeting, is that 30 days or is it less than that?
Meetings for membership notice for membership meetings must always be 30 days. That's only standard. I believe it is also the language in in ORS 65-204, which I have with me.
That's the same as any special membership meeting.
Right, and the bylaws references are to who can call a special meeting, for instance. A special meeting may be called by the president, by the majority of the board, or by 5% of the membership circulating a petition to call a special meeting.
Okay, well,
Eric?
anyways,
Oh, sorry.
let me finish. Okay. So anyways, I don't have a problem with this, and, you know, I think it's actually a good idea that since it would be such a contentious issue, that we do, you know, put it out that we're gonna have a special membership meeting if this ever comes up. And I'll just say for those in the audience, if I am still on the board, even if I don't agree with it, I will, you know, vote with whatever the majority is, even though I think it's dirt cheap to park here. So I'll have to vote probably with Roger, because I'm sure it will be another one of those 197 things, so. Hey, that's all I,
Okay,
now go ahead.
Yeah, I just to kind of cut to the quick, this would probably first go to the Parking Livability Committee, where this issue would come up with the APPP. It would then be brought to the board for us to discuss. But in a way, it's very much like Block 7, where we're allowing the community to make a determination on whether they think it's fair and reasonable. The difference between, Mark, you're paying $100 or $150 a month for garage space, is you're guaranteed that space. Here, you're just getting a license to hunt for
It's
a
a lottery.
parking spot. You're not guaranteed anything.
Got a lottery ticket.
So I just think this is kind of fair and reasonable, because I know it was a very contentious issue in the Northwest District when they had raised it to 300, and then I think they lowered it to 180. Again, it's supposed to be revenue neutral. So I wholeheartedly endorse this. And again, eventually it would be for Area B as well, which is a much smaller area. As an example, I think there are 2,200 permits in the A permit, about 2,000 for residents and about 200 for businesses. In Area B, or Gander Ridge area, it's about 200 residential and about 20 to 30 business. So that's it.
I have a question, Eric. Is Area B entirely within Goose Hollow, or does it go to other,
No, it's just in Goose Hollow now, particularly since that outlying area by PSU is now part of Goose Hollow.
Yep.
So Area B is inclusive of Goose Hollow in its entirety.
Good. Well, if Luke and his people want this, I would say we do something like it at the next opportunity.
Mel, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay, Mark.
No, I think, go ahead, Jerry.
Jerry.
I have a different take on this. I think basically it takes the initiative for hearing and discussion away from the parking committee. It, in the same way that the Block 7 special meetings basically made the Planning Commission useless in that discussion. I understand Roger's concern. I think this is probably not a good way to address it.
And why is that?
Basically because it removes the ability to discuss the issue by the parking committee and bring people to the parking committee to discuss it.
It could be brought to the parking committee originally. For instance, when I was in charge 2 years ago, in both June and July, I highlighted Area A parking, because the previous year, there were a lot of issues, and it turns out that when they sent it to APPP for approval, because again, we're just advisory, they said it was too late. So I had a meeting in June and a meeting in July in which one person showed up, which was Roger in June, and in July, one individual showed up from another condo, but he was dealing more with Bike Town. To me, even if it went through the parking committee, they don't have executive power anyway. They'd have to come to the board to have it voted on.
Correct.
And I'm not saying that would not be getting involved in it, but once that has been resolved, say with the parking committee saying, no, it shouldn't be raised or it should be raised, to then come to the board or a general meeting or a special meeting where the community at large can vote. I think it's an issue that's larger than having, 5, 6, 8, or 10 people.
You're raising two separate issues. One is PBOT's inability to set a time frame and actually use it. And that's something that this proposed action doesn't address, and is going to be with us forever anyway. Unless we can recruit additional pressure for change at PBOT and the way it deals with the public process. Now, the other part of it is that it's the responsibility of each committee, planning committee or transportation committee, to make a case in front of the board for why something ought to change.
Yes.
In the only case where I'm aware that we've done something like Roger's suggesting procedurally, the arguments kind of got buried under a populist argument that was simply emotional and had no particular bearing in fact.
Can I respond?
Well, I don't know. I don't agree with you. Jerry, I don't see why the committee couldn't discuss it, bring it to the board at the next opportunity even, and the board could in fact call a special meeting, and if the board didn't, then the membership could.
Sherry, do you know?
This is just a simple question, maybe someone can answer for me. It would seem to me that, this is just a simple question. It would seem to me, Roger was talking about people in his building where an extra $50 would be an enormous hardship, even going up that high, So isn't there a mechanism, or shouldn't there be a mechanism for people that really have hardship cases to whatever happens? I mean, for even the minimum amount of a permit. So say, for example, you're that family living in Roger's building and you can't afford even the minimum amount. Isn't there a way to go and appeal that so that the fee is waived or lowered?
Only neighborhood by neighborhood. There is no citywide thing for that. There's a way to do that in WDA, for instance, because everybody objected to the $300 a year.
I want to make an observation here, which is that, as I see it, all this is doing is saying the membership has the right to advise and consent. It doesn't hamstring anybody from doing what they're already doing, namely bringing actions forward and saying we think the rate should be raised or whatever, but it says essentially no taxation without representation. It's essentially the principle here, as I understand it.
Do we have any views from anybody in the audience?
I want to reemphasize what Eric said. This is by no means a way telling the parking committee or the board that they can't plan and put together a proposal. The only thing this does is say if you're going to raise that above the administrative costs, the membership gets to vote, because just as Michael has said, it's no taxation. Well, it's like when we vote on a tax at city council. We get to decide if we pass the gasoline tax or the orange tax. Well, it's the same here. The board can put together after study by the Parking and Transportation Committee, whatever proposal it wants, including raising the fees or such. But to raise the fees requires the membership to vote on whether they want to be taxed. That's the basic thing behind this. That's all it is. It doesn't stop us from planning.
Like a bond measure or anything else, really. Okay, any other last minute comments before we vote?
I think Mark?
No, I answered my own question. Let's vote while we're still young.
All in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Jerry, you abstaining or no?
I'm opposed.
Eric is yes?
Eric's out.
All
He
right.
votes for it.
Eric?
He says yes.
He said, let's get him to say yes. Yeah. Drag him back in here.
How dare you?
We need a,
Inlining conversation.
What's your vote, Eric?
Yes?
I've had enough. No, yeah, I vote aye.
okay, 7. And Jerry, are you abstaining or no?
I'm opposed.
No, okay, 1 no.
One opposed. 0 abstentions, nobody absent. So we got Eric back. Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's try to move quickly through the other items, please, everyone. So we are now, this is, Sherry, you had asked to put this on, and I think maybe this is just something we can follow up, some thank you letters for, what was that, for Goose Hollow?
Yeah, for Goose Holidays, I just thought it would be a good idea to just have letters sent out to all of the, just to all the people that participated. Thank you for participating, hope you come again next year or something.
I don't think we need to vote on that. I think that's it. I think we're sensitive. Does everyone agree with that? Okay, let's
You
go
write
over
the
the
letter,
minutes.
Sherry?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do the minutes. Cal?
Okay, so first, the July minutes, the notorious July 19th minutes. So they've been republished, and you should have copies. Made some final changes again today, and I think all the votes add up. So unless anybody has any objections, I'm going to move that they be approved. July.
Have a second?
Second.
Everybody second.
Roger seconded. Okay, Roger.
Roger, you're second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 to 0. Going to the September.
The September minutes, I distributed that, and I had some corrections come back to me a few days ago. I've incorporated all the corrections, and I move that we approve these.
Have a second there?
I'll second.
Eric will second that one. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, where's Mel?
She stepped out.
Okay, 7.
Yeah, 7. One.
7.
Yeah.
One absent.
Treasurer's report. Eric, you've got a lot
Right,
of money.
I don't have a full accounting yet for Goose Holidays. There are several checks still outstanding, another 1 or 2 checks coming in. So I'm going to have to wait to get the statement at the end of October. So I'll have a full accounting. But right now we have $5,070.45 in our checking and $250.16 in our savings, for a total of $5,320.61. So it'll go up or down a little bit by next month. So Goose Hollow days, it looks like we probably are in the $25,000 to $3,000 up range.
Okay.
And a final accounting will be done next month.
Terrific. Okay, anybody move approval for that? For the treasurer's report?
No, because it's not really complete. He's going to get it to us next month.
Well, I mean,
Well, with his verbal report.
I can give you the balance for what we had as of the end of September, but there are still some checks that are outstanding and a check that I just got this evening. So I'm not adding that into the account. I can give you a full total on what we did on Goose Holidays next month, but the balances we have here are true.
Well, he gave us a verbal report, and we can, Cal can enter that, and we can approve it.
We can, let's just, I think really the best term is probably accept.
Well, what were the numbers again then, Eric? I guess I didn't
It's
hear.
$5,070.45 is in our checking account, and in our savings account, it's $250.16, for a total of $5,320.61. Prior to Goose Hollow days, we had approximately $2,250 in the account, again, more or less.
Let me just ask one more question. That savings account, I've lost track now. That's not a restricted thing, is it?
No, it's not.
You got rid of all that restricted stuff, right?
No, nothing is restricted at this point.
Yeah.
And that $250.16 has been the same for probably the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, we get a penny every 3 months or something.
Something along those lines, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So my comment is that the treasurer's report and numbers are correct. It's just that the amount that's been attributed to Goose Holidays is pending.
That is correct, and this balance might go up a little or down a little based on, I think there are 3 checks outstanding and 1 additional check coming in. So, and I'll have that when I get the October statement at the beginning of November.
So I'll second it. So we need a second.
Did he?
I'm sorry?
Don't we need a second, or do we not need a second?
Did he move to accept it? Well, of course, you introduced it, so.
Oh.
All right, well, let's vote on it. All in favor of accepting the report? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 oh.
You want to read, now it's back, you want to re-vote on the second approval of the minutes?
You got it. It's approved, yeah. Let's just keep moving. Yeah. They were. Okay, committee reports, please, quickly, everyone. Communications.
I don't remember anything happening this month. Is my co-chair, Scott? No, he left. Okay, well, all right. I guess I have no report.
Okay, public safety, parking, and transportation.
Pass that to Cal.
Carl isn't here. Carl is not here. A bunch of us were present at that meeting. What we did was, oh wait, that was last, no. There is no report because we didn't have a meeting. We reported on this one, on the last one at the September meeting. That was when we had discussed the Kings Hill max stop. So there was no meeting, period.
Okay, got it. Okay, Jerry, Stadium Oversight Committee?
The CTMP is still the major thrust of what the Oversight Committee is working with. The Timbers new website is still a work in progress. The committee leaned fairly emphatically on Mr. Costello, the webmaster for the Timbers. He's having some problem actually delivering on the promise of being able to give real-time information on what parking is available to people approaching downtown, driving in. The promise was that he would be able to put real-time information on the website that would be accessible to people on their drive to a Timbers game as to where there were parking places available in an array of parking garages. There is plenty of parking available in public parking garages to actually take care of all of the demand that the Timbers produce. Getting that information, being able to produce that information in a way that doesn't create enormous security issues is another issue. So we're still working on that. Rideshare pickup zones, NWDA was not happy with the rideshare pickup zones that have been selected, so we're still working on that. Legacy parking garages are, they're a go. The Legacy is going to commit its parking garages for Timbers games, and that's an enormous number of parking spaces. Probably enough to take care of excess demand that's created, even if the public parking garages are full. TriMet service, TriMet is still waffling. They said they can provide as much service as is required for Timbers patrons, but it seems that they want to provide it after the demand is approved, which kind of doesn't really answer the problem. So there's some arm twisting necessary there. The CTMP draft is under revision right now. We're going to see a first copy of that in the November meeting. That's where we're at.
What? Sorry, I didn't hear the draft. What draft?
The CTMP draft.
I should know what that is, right? I forgot.
Yeah, you should.
Just write it down. CTMP.
Comprehensive Transportation Management Plan.
Right. Comprehensive.
It's
And that's
all
gotta become-
multi-syllable words.
So there's a
Sorry.
draft. There is a draft, or they're working on a draft?
There is a CTMP now. The draft that is in progress right now is a revision of the existing CTMP, and we'll have the full text of the proposed revisions in November.
Okay, thank you.
And that's going to be all the more critical when those, 4,000 more seats come online. Sherry, you had a comment?
This is just a quick question back on the safety. We've had, of course, a number of break-ins in the neighborhood into various condos and apartment buildings, and I was wondering if any the person that maybe someone who's gone to the planning or going to the safety committee meeting, if there was any news of any more break-ins in the past month, or did we have a month free of break-ins? Does anyone know?
I haven't gotten any emails from them.
So hopefully we had a turn to corner maybe.
I doubt it.
Time will tell. Okay, Roger, you don't have anything on, thank you, Jerry. You don't have anything on bylaws?
Just that we will be meeting this coming Wednesday. We will tweak we will be tweaking the election procedures, and anything that we produce will come before the board. Certainly not before December, because next month is the annual meeting.
Right. And then,
And we have to smooth out that last sentence that we promised to do last month.
Yes.
and now back to Jerry again for planning and zoning.
Yeah, I was out of town for the last planning and zoning meeting. Scott chaired that meeting.
Okay, so we'll table that for next time.
I was there,
Do you want to report?
but
Okay.
I can't remember what we did.
Not anything important, I guess, right?
I think we had a presentation by somebody, but anyway.
Oh, was
I
it
can't-
the Lincoln High School?
Yeah, that's right, it was the Lincoln High School, yeah, Steve was there. Yeah, well, mostly it was the Lincoln High School presentation. Yeah, we spent like about an hour and a half doing that. Scott brought Popeyes, but I didn't get any. That was the main thing.
Okay, we'll catch up on that later. Roger, Neighbors West Northwest.
Okay, the main thing that came before Neighbors West Northwest last Wednesday was the follow-up to the article I hope you all read, Below the Fold, on page 1 in the Northwest Examiner. bitter remnant clutches controls about the election in the Downtown Neighborhood Association, where just reminiscent of what we did when we tossed out the developers and such who were in control of Goose Hollow. Over 100 people showed up and held a meeting and elected a new board. That was immediately challenged by, as is detailed in here, the remnants of the old board. And what they did was they called Sukri, the director of Okal, what used to be Oni, and she persuaded the newly elected board not to use the procedures that were in place by the city, which was to go through the Oni standards, which would mean a grievance procedure that would have been public and could have been appealed to Neighbors West Northwest and then appealed ultimately to Okal. She persuaded them to go through a procedure no one knew anything about, which was to go through the Oregon Department of Justice. And that was pending at the time that this came out. What happened on Wednesday at NWNW was they read a decision by a man named Douglas Pearson in the Oregon Department of Justice in the charitable activities section, the fraud enforcement division, who declared that they did not follow the bylaws correctly and therefore the election was invalid and must be held yet again, even though out of 101 votes counted, the most that any member of the former board got was 16. And all the 11 people who had nominated themselves from the floor got anywhere from 83 to 68, Alan? Is that
74.
74, thank you. So we're all very puzzled by this, and we don't understand how this could have happened. So you can wait for Mr. Klassen's next issue to find out what's going on.
Stay tuned. Well, I think clearly the optics are problematic from the point of view of democracy. If you care about, people representing neighborhoods, and we obviously care about that on this board, and want to be supportive of other neighborhoods that want to be more representative of their membership. But I think it sounds to me like there's basically a technicality that was involved. We can debate whether the technicality was interpreted correctly or not, but it seems like this is all going to go forward. And I think the real issue for us is the decision-making that happens at Neighbors West Northwest and their oversight of this process, which we're part of that board, obviously. So we'll see, I guess. Anybody have any other comments or questions on that?
Yeah, I move we adjourn.
Well, there's one other thing which I need to do. Actually, Eric, it involves you, and that is that we are going to have our election next month, a week from, or 3 weeks, Thursday, the third Thursday of November, and unfortunately, once again, I'm sorry to say I'm not going to be here. I think you are the only one, Eric, who is eligible. I think Cal would be eligible, but you're going to be...
Well, I'm demanding a recount right now.
So would you...
I'm going to be out of the city.
Right, so I think we need to appoint...
Yeah, you would appoint Eric if he's willing, and we would advise and consent to it.
Well, I want to vote in the community. It's fine.
Eric, there's no one else.
Shut up and serve, Mr. Simon.
Well, when you want to scrape the bottom of the barrel, please let me know.
So does anybody, Steve, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think it would be nice to get the Goose Holidays photos up on the website, so when Sherry sends a letter out thanking all of the participants, the letter can include the website so that people can see some photos.
That would be
of
great.
themselves.
Let's take a quick vote, though, on the appointment.
I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining because you're the victim, sorry. All in favor? 1, 2, 3,
You're off
4,
my Hanukkah
5,
list.
6, 7. 7 and 1 abstention. Okay, on that note, I think, call the meeting.
And congratulations before 9 o'clock.